because it's our last evening of a 10th anniversary session here. 10 years ago we started here, I think it was also August, with 5 courageous people believing that EGS might work, and one of them we have back tonight, one of the founding professors of our program, but not just a founding professor, but also in many ways an embodiment of my vision, my cross-disciplinary vision for this program, a vision rooted in thinking, but not restricted to it, so going out and expressing itself in many media. And we have a guy, when you ask him, is he a filmmaker? He says, no, I'm a painter, known as a filmmaker. But now I think after he's repainting one of the classical paintings, when I see it, I think it's kind of Leonardo da Vinci is coming back from heaven and do it again in the language of today and see what is going out of there. And he does it to quite a few of the great painters. And still, with his ambitious projects in film, in cinema. When he came here, the first title of his class was, "Is there cinema yet?" And the answer was, no, no cinema here. So well, that is a challenge which quite a few of our students have learned a lot from for their work, even if they are not in cinema. It was always a thought-provoking learning by role model experience to have him at Saas-Fee, and I'm very happy that he will end our anniversary session tonight. Please welcome Peter Greenaway.
Since indeed it is the last night, I hope to offer some entertainment, but I hope some entertainment with some vision and profundity. As already Wolfgang has suggested, I have embarked upon a, I suppose, project which unites my favorite 2 subjects, one of which is painting and the other which is cinema. I've often approached this area with a considerable amount of trepidation because it's very self-indulgent. Maybe sometimes I'm embarrassed about being a filmmaker, but I assure you I'm even more embarrassed about being a painter. But I've always felt that there should be a correspondence in terms of visual literacy between the 8,000 years of painting experience and the 113 years of cinema experience. 8,000 years and 113. There's really no comparison, is there? But I do feel we've ended up with a text-based cinema and not an image-based cinema. And I think we've all taken a very bad wrong turning. Very difficult, of course, to turn the clock back. Very difficult to rewind the tape, because we've now ended up with a situation which is so complex and also is extraordinarily global and has so many vested interests that to re-educate people from the top again is, of course, incredibly difficult. What should we do about that? Well, I do think, almost without trying, we now have at our fingertips some extraordinary new tools, new technological visual tools, as I think I've expressed to the students here in the last 3 days and probably before. It does hold out for me the possibility of curiously being able to start all over again. Not that we should jettison 113 years, but that we should use it as a prologue, an examination, a finding out, an investigation of how to make what I would describe as an entirely autonomous cinema, because I certainly don't think we've got that. In moments of deep melancholy, I would actually argue that none of you in the room here have actually ever seen any cinema. At best, you've seen 113 years of illustrated text and probably some well-recorded theatre. Cinema still, I think, after all those millions of films that have been manufactured all over the world, for my concerns, has not created an autonomous body of work which cannot easily be deconstructed into the other major 6 art forms. I hold out an enormous amount of optimism, and why should we be any different, for what happens next. And I hope also to be able to participate in that. And one of the ways, and I think again the last 3 days have also proven that, is to continually inject the primacy of the importance of painting and what it stands for, and demand a greater understanding of what it's done, how valuable it is, and how it's taught us so many things. One of the ways to do that, I suppose, is to see if we can probably hold a dialogue between the characteristics of cinema and the characteristics of painting. Many ways to do this. And probably a lot of people in this class who've seen Godard's Passion, is that true? Where he conducted, indeed, a dialogue between one of my favorite paintings, which I'm going to discuss in a minute, which is Rembrandt's Night Watch. But there was a way he couldn't come too close. He couldn't actually almost interfere with the fabric of the painting. He couldn't come as close as he would want to. I suspect we've done one better than that we've actually almost physically interacted with the painting. Let me just give you a little historical background. 2006 was the 400th birthday of Rembrandt. He's born in 1606. Great celebrations all over Holland, obviously his home nation, and certainly in Amsterdam, his hometown. And his major painting, I suppose, he's very prolific, and probably has a total oeuvre of over maybe 400 paintings. 55 of them at least are all self-portraits. His major work, I suppose, known all over the world, is indeed this painting called The Night Watch. It holds pride of place, almost like an altarpiece, in a specially built, huge Victorian building in the center of Amsterdam called the Rijksmuseum. Museum. When I open my attic window, I can almost put my hand out and touch the Rijksmuseum. Museum. In my pocket, I have a card that virtually allows me to go and visit these extraordinary paintings virtually 24 hours a day. So you can see I'm particularly privileged. Part of that privilege, then, was an instigation by the intendants of the museum to see if Greenaway, who is, I think, self-advertisingly interested and passionate about light and the whole uses of light in the cinema, could create some sort of dialogue with Rembrandt, who is the master of light of the early 17th century. Okay, Rembrandt, Greenaway, my God, what a comparison. So we must keep everything at a level here which doesn't approach any remote notion of vainglory. But there are openings, and there are possibilities. And again, remember that Holland is a secular country and doesn't necessarily bow down and genuflect in great works of art. There's a feeling that Rembrandt essentially was the guy next door. Dirty ears, domestic problems, crying children, certainly not somebody you would worship like Michelangelo or Raphael or indeed Da Vinci. So the possibility of actually going up to the spirit of Rembrandt and shaking his hand and saying, oh come, okay, let's do something together, is not so inconceivable in a Dutch context. I say that now because a little later the circumstances are going to completely change, and I'll explain why. So the Volkskrant, which is the national newspaper of Holland, splashed over the front page, Greenaway is given the night watch to play with. Certainly very provocative. I hope we did it honorably. I hope we did it within the spirit of what Rembrandt stands for, not only as a painter, but in terms of his citizenship, indeed of Amsterdam and certainly of Holland. What we did then was to take on the vocabulary of Rembrandt himself, which is basically light, and see if we can make an interface, see if we can, literally, if you like, interfere with his lighting schemes. The chiaroscuro, change the shadows, make a dramatization of the reasoning of why he did what he did. We needed to have some sort of temporality here. We were going to create a performance, in quotes,